Hi, and welcome to Jackson Hinds Library System's summer reading photography class. I am Shannon, and I'm one of the employees here in the library system. And welcome, Shutterbugs. I am going to be person guiding you through these courses over the next few weeks. So welcome. A little bit about me. When I was 18, I worked at a local drugstore, and they had a 1-hour photo lab. And so working in there and seeing all the different types of photography that was coming through, I really gained an interest in what made a really great photo and what was, what all was involved, the difference between, a standard snapshot and something that you really wanted to just look at and study. And also how to keep from making photos that were not so great. And so I took some photography classes at Hinds Community College and learned a lot of rules and about lighting and composition and distance and different things. And from there I did a lot of picture taking and learning and trial and error, and got a little better and a little better. And I started doing some freelance photography. I would borrow my friends' kids and take pictures of them, and it's very hard to, for a person to criticize pictures of their kids. So that, they were, very easy subject matter. And did a couple of weddings, and later on I decided I wanted to pursue a different path, so I went to college, but I still take pictures pretty much every day, always trying to find the best angle and the right lighting, and so it's a hobby that definitely can spend a lifetime trying to improve and really produce some very beautiful and interesting images along the way. So hopefully I'm able to share some of the things that I've learned over the years with you guys, and that you will learn and take this as like a seed and grow with it. Photography is something that anybody can do. You don't need, natural drawing ability or anything like that to learn how to take photos. And so that's really one of the things that I loved about it, because I can't draw a straight line to save my life. So if it weren't for photography, I really would not have a way to express myself in an artistic way. So a little bit about the class. This is an Instagram account that has been created for this class. I will post any photos that you see in the slides this week will be there that are mine or another staff member's. And like at the end of this class, we're going to do a little project. We're going to make a camera of sorts out of a box. So those instructions will be there so that you'll have, easy access to that. But more than anything, when this class was initially discussed and everything, it was supposed to be an in-person class, and because of COVID-19, you know, that's not possible. So I wanted to try to use Instagram and this account as a way of for you guys to share your photos and things that you're trying and experimenting with, and learning from each other and things like that. So if you have an Instagram account and you want to participate, you would just, you know, tag us in a photo, and that way we can see. Just remember that we're a library system, so if it's not appropriate for school, it's not appropriate for the library, and we want to be respectful to all people and not do anything offensive. So as far as what you need for this class, you do not need a professional camera. If you have one, that's awesome. If you have a point and shoot camera, that is fine. If you have a cell phone, this is my camera 99% of the time. I take pictures on my camera every single day. So if this is what you have, then use it. I take, you know, some of the photos that I take on my phone we'll see a little bit later on. So technology has really made it where you don't have to have an expensive camera to take really good photos. So that's that. So don't feel like you can't participate because you don't have a certain type of camera or anything like that. There are rules as far as how to divide up a scene and all of that, and so those things can be used with any type of camera and those principles. So learning about lighting and all of those things that we're going to talk about over the next few weeks. So and even if you don't have a camera at all, you can watch and learn, and you know, at some point later on, you do have gain access to a camera, you will have a little bit of background to get started taking photos with. Even if photography is not really your thing, I mean, everybody loves to take a selfie. So learning how to take better selfies, or taking a better picture of your friends or your family. There's always room for improvement, and everybody loves a great photo. So yeah, okay. So we're going to start a little bit this week. We're going to talk about the history of photography this week, and kind of where it got started and how it's changed over time. And the idea of photography has existed since Aristotle, and it was called camera obscura, and they knew that a dark room with a small opening and light coming through could project an image onto the wall of the room. So that idea has existed for a very long time, but it wasn't until around 1825 that we come across our first actual photographs. Joseph Niepce, this photograph here is actually printed as an ink on paper print, but the actual image was produced with photosensitive, light-sensitive materials. Niepce called his process the heliograph. So helio in Latin means sun. He would use a natural occurring asphalt type material and an oil that would dissolve that and create a sheet of metal and prepare it and then expose it to light. And the parts that were exposed to the most light, they would be darker and solid, and then the oil would wash away the parts that were not hard, and so that would produce an image. This is 1826. This is the oldest surviving negative photo image. This is the courtyard of Neep's window, outside of Neep's window. It's kind of hard to tell really what's going on in here because the photo is so grainy. That's something we'll talk about later. Kind of modern times it's referred to as noise. And if you see all these little dots, this is what we would call noise today. So that's Neep's and his heliograph method of photography. And then in 1844 we have Louis Daguerre, and he comes up with a daguerreotype, and this image is actually a daguerreotype of Daguerre himself. It was taken by another photographer, and the daguerreotype became really popular. People were able to have their photo taken for the first time, and up until photography, if you wanted an image of yourself or a family member, the only way you could do that was to pay someone to paint a portrait. So as you can imagine, that was very expensive. So the average person was not able to have record of their family and their lineage and things like that. And so that was a lot of the push behind this, developing photography. It was making it available for everyone, where it wasn't just the wealthiest in society that could, preserve images of themselves and their family members and pass them down through generations. So this next photo is an image that Daguerre actually took himself in his studio. So again, we see, dots and noise. This could be black spots are usually something that was on the sheet before it was exposed to light, and white spots are usually something. It could be dust or nicks or anything like that. And so what we had up until this time was daguerreotypes were usually portraits. They were very rarely landscapes. Like this would be considered a landscape, and the previous slide would be a portrait. And they were printed on a silver coated sheet of tin. So they were very easy to tarnish. So they would be preserved under glass. And if something happened to that image, there was no way to reproduce it. Or if you wanted an image of a grandmother and you wanted it to, each one of her children to have that image, you would have to take a different photograph, because there was no way to reproduce the image multiple times. So we have a lot of limitations, and if you notice so far, everything is in black and white. In a world of color, photography existed in black and white for a good while. So we still do not have where the average person can take photographs. These processes, Daguerre and Niepce, these are just two people. There were many other methods. The Daguerreotype was very popular. Niepce was just, the first surviving. And the photographers, they would travel around from area to area, and they would take the photographs and they would develop them and sell them. And so they were always on the go, because the chemicals that were being used were, they were not user-friendly. Some of them were very dangerous. Some processes required mercury, and there were a lot of photographers that died from the mercury over time. So these things were very dangerous, and so not only were they, photographers, but in, a lot of ways they were also chemists dealing with these, the preparations and the development that was going on. So in 1888, we have a game changer. George Eastman came out with the Kodak camera, and what this allowed, he had created a roll of film that was actually, usable. Others had tried, but had not been successful. And what a person would do is they would buy the camera. The film would already be loaded, and they could take 100 pictures on it. And when they were finished, they would mail the entire camera back, and it would get developed and the pictures would be mailed to them. This was very, very popular. The masses now could take a picture. They could take a picture of, their tree growing in the front yard, or their children playing, or whatever it was that they were interested in. They were able to take these photographs for the first time. So big change in making photography accessible to everyone. We are still living in a black and white world at this point in time. It wasn't until 1907 we come across autochrome, and this was developed by the Lumiere brothers. And what it was still a black and white to begin with, and then they would use these mosaic screens to apply color. If you notice, the color is very subtle. It's not all that saturated. Before this process, I forgot to mention, they would actually paint photographs to make them color. And some of the initial photographs, they were painted to look like paintings, because some people they found photography something to be afraid of, because it was different. They felt it captured essence of the soul, and from wise tales and things like that. People were scared of having their photo taken. But for the most part, people were excited about technology, just like we're excited about technology. When something new comes out, whether it's a new gaming console or a new game or anything like that, or a new car with something that's never been seen before. We as people are always excited about those types of things. The first actual color film did not come out until 1935. the Eastman Kodak Company developed Kodachrome. And here we have a picture of former President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And over here we have a picture of the streets of London. Both were taken around the same time, sometime in the 40s. If you notice from the previous slide how much more detail and saturated the colors are, and much more alive and vibrant and realistic as to what our eye sees. So Kodak was a major player in the film world. This is the actual roll of Kodachrome. And here we have a camera, and these are different types of film. Kodak and Fuji were two of your big players in film production. Kodak film had a 4-layer emulsion, and a Fuji film had a 5-layer emulsion for their color processes. Kodachrome film was in production until 2009. It was so popular there's actually a song about it, and see if we can link down below a link to where you can hear the song by Paul Simon, singing about don't take his Kodachrome away. So this is the world until late 90s, early 2000s, and we start moving in, you know, digital photography. The advancements in technology and computers and everything, digital photography just kind of comes in and, you know, very quickly takes over and develops much faster than its predecessors. But in actuality, first digital photo goes back to 1951, where they were creating digital images. And if you see in this image how you see these squares, these are actual pixels. So if you look at a digital camera for sale, it'll say, you know, how many megapixels that camera is. And what they're referring to is how many of these squares there are. So let me think. Per dot. The higher the number, the higher the resolution of the picture. 1990, Kodak puts in its first digital cameras we know, digital cameras today, for sale, and it's $13,000. So you can imagine not many of those were sold, and the camera was actually 1.3 megapixels. So it's a lot of money for not a lot of camera. Your image quality really and truly would not be much better than this picture. Technology has really brought digital photography a long way very fast. These are a couple of photographs that I took on my phone. It had rains one night, and it was kind of foggy, and I had just gotten a phone, so I wanted to ride around. I went downtown. This is the state capitol, and they had just finished doing the LED lights, so that's why you have this really nice clean white up here. And then this is St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. This is across from the governor's mansion on Capitol Street. This sky, the reason it's red, this is the west sky back here. After the rain and everything, it's kind of a backlit look. And church's really well lit at night, so you can see. And I just took these pictures holding my arm out the window of my car. So definitely you're not talking about a lot of effort being put into them. Advantages of digital photography are, as soon as you take a picture, you can see what you've taken. With film, you did not have that ability. You would have to shoot an entire roll, and then you'd have to take it to have it developed, and then you'd have to wait and pick up your photos, and then you could see what you had taken pictures of. So digital photography fits very well in the way we think today of instantaneous access to images that provides us. And our images are stored on our camera. Like all of my images are saved on my phone, and then from there back them up to a computer, back them up to the cloud. Have that. And digital images are easier to manipulate because they're already in a digital format. I can email a picture from my phone to myself, put it on my computer, and pop it in Photoshop and start adjusting it, in a matter of, a minute or two. So that's really great about digital photography. One of the, I think, best things about digital photography is there are so many things built into the cameras today. You have motion stabilization, you have sensors that read and adjust for light. These photographs that they were taking with film, they would have required me getting out of my car, setting up a tripod, metering for light, and doing timed exposures. Much more complicated and complex process that would have taken 10 to 15 minutes just to take one picture, going through all the steps, whereas I just stick my hand out of the car and snap and roll on down the street into the next place I thought was interesting looking. That's one of the great things about digital photography. And it doesn't, because of this technology that's being built into the cameras, it's so much easier for someone without a lot of skill to take really great photos. I mean, a person who's never taken any type of classes or learned anything about photography can take a great photo today. So learning just a little bit really, gives you the opportunity to enhance the type of photos you can take. So that's it for history of photography. Hopefully it wasn't too boring and you learned a little bit. So next we're going to make a pinhole camera. So what happened was I've already made the camera and I've taken pictures along the way. This was a camera that was made by my co-worker. He made this camera for me. I was initially thinking about doing the class. I was thinking about doing it a different way and then changed my mind. So I had to make a camera tonight for you guys. So we're going to make a pinhole camera, which is also called camera obscura. So this goes back to Aristotle's time, this idea of dark room, small hole, light passing through and projecting an image. Okay, so this is what you're going to need to be able to make this. You're going to need a rectangular box. Shoebox is the easiest thing to use. You're going to need some tape. If your box is not light tight, you're going to need some kind of light blocking tape like duct tape. But you're also going to want some, either just some plain clear tape or some masking tape as well. You're going to need some wax paper. I did not have any wax paper, so I used tissue paper, and it worked. It wasn't as nice as the wax paper would have been. You're going to need a pencil. It needs to be sharp because you're going to poke a hole with that pencil. You're going to need some scissors. You're going to need a ruler, and you're going to need a cutting blade. And you're going to need to get help from an adult. We don't want anybody accidentally hurting themselves. Because these cutting blades are really, really sharp. So definitely want to get help from an adult with something like that. Have them do it for you. You're going to need a blanket. And when I tried this, I used this thinner blanket that's here. I would recommend like a blanket from your bed, something that's thick and big, because you're kind of really going to want to TP yourself inside this blanket and make it as dark as possible so you can see the image. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to make sure our box is light tight. If you use a shoebox, you don't really have to worry about it because the lid overlaps the sides of the box. But if you don't have a shoebox, you can use any type of rectangular box. I used this box and just taped it up. What we used at work, we just taped up a box. Some books came in. So you're going to want to tape these center seams, and you're also going to want to seal up your corners because light can come through these corners where the boxes fold and overlap. And after you have your box taped up, you're going to use a sharp pencil and you're going to poke a hole in it. One small hole in one of the short ends of the box. You don't want to use the long end, you want to use one of the short ends. So that's what you do on one end. And on the other end, you're going to measure off a 2-inch square. And you want to make sure that that square lines up with the hole you poked on the other side of the box. So if your hole's in the middle, you want to make sure you're cutting your square in the middle. So you're going to draw it off. And this is where you need to get an adult because we're going to be dealing with this sharp blade here, and they're going to cut the square out for you. And one of the things you need to do is while you have your box like this, you want to make sure it's light tight. If you see right here, this little bitty dot, that's the hole on the other side that you can see the light through. And if you see any light in the corners or anything like that, you want to make sure you seal that up. So after we get our hole in our box, we need to cut out a 3-inch square of wax paper and measure that out and cut it out with our scissors. And then we're going to tape it over our hole. I use masking tape. You can use transparent tape. You just don't want to put tape over the actual square of the hole because that's where your image is going to be at. And so from this point, it's not really a way I can demonstrate, show you guys. But you're going to take your box. Well, let me do this. All right. So you can see here's the box. It's this end, and then the hole is on this end. So you're going to take your box and you're going to go in a dimly lit room. So the darker the room is, the better off you are. And then you want to turn on the lamp on the other side of the room. And from there, you're going to want to stand about 5 feet from it. And then you're going to cover your head and your camera. Let me see if I can show you guys. Kind of an idea. what you're going to do. So here's a blanket. This is not an adequate enough blanket. You're going to cover your head, and then you're going to cover your box, and you're going to hold your box out like so at your lamp. So we're going to be about arm's length, and then in the little square right here, you're going to see an upside down image of your lamp. If you don't see it at first, adjust with the light and distance from the lamp, and just kind of play around with it, and you should eventually be able to see it. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I would love to see the cameras you guys make. So take a picture of your camera and tag us on Instagram and share. So if you have any questions or anything, you can reach out to us and let us know. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, Shutterbugs.